Srinath, one question.
Yeah, Sandhya.
This is Sandhya.
Sure,
Yeah.
Sandhya.
You have given the topics on the Android multimedia like multimedia API, playing audio, playing video, and text-to-speech API, right?
Yeah, these are multimedia APIs actually. This multimedia is like the introduction to what exactly we are going to learn, and we have seen these things which are APIs of different
Yes.
sectors in multimedia. Yeah.
So all these three comes under API methods.
Yeah, these things will come under like Android multimedia actually. All these three actually basically, right?
These are the important and I think there are many other methods under this API, right?
Yeah, many other instances there are actually if you are talking about internal APIs, right? Like, right? So basically when we say client side, right? Client side is something which is a mobile side here, right? So normally we say client side if you are talking about websites, right? Client side is something when any end user tries to browse on his site, right? So something will run on his machine, which is called as a client side. So few things will be saved as like cookies or something like sessions or some URL patterns or hidden fields or some JavaScript storage values or some jQuery client side animations. All these things are something which runs on client side, right? In the same way, in our Android, right, as we will be working on thick client. So whenever we say Android, right, which means we are talking about developing a thick client app, right? So when we are talking about thick client app, there will be a situation that you have to save something in local. Now, basically, whenever we say local, right, if you are using any machine like your laptop or computer, which is a desktop type of, right, then yes, you can actually go for with storing data in huge volumes. But it is not the case with mobile phone, right? Because people will be using maybe less memory or highest memory in their phones. You have to check that and you have to make sure that your storage is optimized for your app. This is the first step. Second step is you can actually save the data per user at database side also. But if you do that, if you are actually saving each and every minute data of your Android app, right, in your database, which is over the network, right, then what happens is unless user have internet access from his mobile phone or smartphone, he can't access your app, which is again a big disadvantage, right? For that, what we have to do is, so you have to provide a minimal functionality that he should be able to, play around with your app with minimal data which you can save in his local phone, right? So in that situation, we have 4 different ways of data storage, and again these data storage are a type of content providers, right? Again, so I just put this content provider separately normally. So content providers are something which actually gives support to save some content into your phone. That's a basic definition normally. We'll come to that part and we'll see different things even there, right? But normally when we're talking about data storage, so these things are called as, these all are again the examples of content providers in Android. We'll see what are the different things we have, right? Now, so under data storage, let's start with shared preferences first. So this shared preferences are like cookies in our web applications, websites normally. Now, what is a cookie is like, to give a layman example, right? So let's say you have a page, right? Web page where you just said remember login ID and password, right? So whenever you revisit your site again, so whenever you revisit your page again, what happens is those username and password in the same field will get populated automatically. You don't have to enter it again, right? So this thing can be done in different ways, right? It can be autocomplete. It can be you're using internal form data of your browser. You're using internal cookies of your browser, anything, right? So these are something which gives a storage in your browser space. So here shape preferences acts as the same way. Now these are like small files which are created in Android 4, and we can use those files to save some data and retrieve the same data for minimal purpose, right? And these shape preferences are mostly used for saving some few data which you want to persist across your app. Even if you close your app, dispose your app, restart your app again, restart your phone and try to access your app again, so this data will never go lapse, right? So that is the type of shape preference we have here. And if you, unless you remove your shape preferences, the data will stay forever, right? So that is what, if you have seen in your phones, you will have an option when you go to application preferences, right? You will have something called, when you select your app, you will have an option of clear data. That clear data is nothing but clearing all the shape preferences or pertaining internal storages of that particular app. Fine. So let's start with this shape preferences. So let me create a new project here. So let me say storage. So next. Finish. So in our situation, we'll try to do this. So what we'll do here is we'll try to create a login, simple login model API app as such. So what we'll do, we'll give an option to save data, right? We'll give an option to save data and move on, and we'll see when we actually move on with different screens or activities, right? The username and password, whatever we are giving that login will be persisted across your second activity, third activity, and so on. First thing. Second thing is when we close our activity, when we actually dispose or close our app, and when we open again, we don't want to see the login page. I directly want to go ahead and show the second activity where it seems it says that okay, login is successful and it went to the second activity. So that is what we'll be creating now, right? You can actually use the same model in your e-commerce app if you want, right? So for that, let me take few controls here. So first thing, let me take a text field where I can give any data of username separately. Let us say this is username, like let me just say password. I'm gonna take a password here, right? And then next thing, let's take a checkbox. So checkbox is for remember me, right? Sort of, we basically say remember me now. And then let's take a button. Okay? A simple login screen we're going to create. Now here let's go back and see, give some decent names. Let's say edit text username, and it will be a focus. So whenever we launch this app, right? So this will actually come up. Now I'm actually doing this part in my main itself. If you don't want to do it in main, let me create a new activity. So here let me create a login activity. Okay, so this is a login activity. So let's do the same thing, which is just take these controls and paste it here. Right, so where we are going to place all the controls. Related to each other. So put it here, put the checkbox here, and there's the button. Okay, perfect. Now let's go here. So this is the edit text username, and let's give it as edit text password. So here let's give the request focus to username basically, right? So this is for this. Okay, so align right, you have, okay, let's design it in a clean way. So in our name, let's go ahead and first connect this activity, login activity first. So let me call intent, logint is equal to new intent of, so this main activity dot this comma, so we have to go to login activity dot class and just say start activity of object, right? So this will do with our main activity. We're done with that. Now let's get into the actual business, which is creating a login app, right? So now let me take text fields first. So username, you have your password, and then let's take out some checkbox and then a button. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and change the name of this. Edit text username, edit text password, right? And then we have checkbox, remember me, and we have button BTN login. Right? Now adjust this. So you have edit username. It should be below edit username, and password. So your checkbox should be left to your edit text password, and this is something which is your edit text username. Perfect. Now this checkbox, let me keep it as remember me, right? And then your checkbox should come on the top of a button and just say login. Perfect. Now this is a sample login screen we have created. Now, so this is a login button. So on click of this button, we have to do something. Now let me create one more activity. So let me say next, and this is, let's say, shared preferences, let's say 1, right? So we shared preference 1 activity, which is first activity, let's say. From login, let's say this is something which is a profile page activity. So let me go back here and just say this as welcome user, something. Right, so that we know that this is a profile page as such. Perfect, right? Now let's go back here. So here in the place of user, right? So what we are interested is we have to populate whatever login ID you are giving here. We want to populate it in our welcome and user, so that we can show that we are actually passing data from one activity to other activity through preferences first. Fine. Now let's go ahead and see what we can do here. Now first thing is you have to create your button click basically. So let me take a widget of button. LOBJ BTN is equal to find view by ID. You have r dot ID dot BTN login. So let me typecast it. So once it is done, let's say BTN dot set on click listener off. Let's implement that on click listener. Okay, so just say this as this, and here let's remove this on, create menu options. Now here we are going to add implement method for on-click. So when I click on login, let's see how we can actually pass the data to the next activity. First step, right? Now here let's create a try catch here. Right? Now here let's see how we can actually do that, right? Now when we click on login, right, so what we have to do here is, if I say remember me, right, then we have to save this data into our shared preferences, and then we have to go to the next activity, which is shared preference 1 activity, and then from here we'll read the same shared preference back and we'll populate the username, right? That is what we are going to see as a first level. Now, so starting with shared preferences, right? Shared preference is something which is a direct class under content of Android. We have something called shared preferences. Here you can see it's a interface, right? Which is, you'll get it as LOVJ shared pref is equal to null, let's say, right? Now this is where we are actually creating shared preferences, and you can see that this is something which comes under our content. As I was saying, in Android content providers, right, all the storage parts are something which comes under our content providers. So shared preference is something which is a content provider of data storage, right? Now this is something where we have to create a variable, and now whenever we click on this, let's see how we can actually feed this variable into, how to feed the username and password into the shared preferences, right? Now let me just instantiate that. Now as we know that you cannot instantiate your interface, right? Interfaces are something which cannot be instantiated. Rather, you have to get an object and assign to this variable, right? Now here, so this is how we actually create a shared preference object. Just say this dot, you have something called get shared preferences. When I say this, right, which means it will actually take up the current context of your Android activity, and when it takes current context, then so pertaining to each and every app, right, there will be separate shared preference, or you can use the same shared preference across different apps too. Only thing is you have to remember the shared preference name. The first segment which you can see here is something called as shared preference name, or you can also say it as a file name. Let us say I'm giving it as my pref, which is my file name which will be stored inside the Android. And mode is nothing but, so in which mode you want to create, right? Let's say as I said now, right, you can actually make the shared preferences accessible across different apps, or you can make this shared preference private to this app too. So based on that, you have to select a mode. Now you can see there are so many. You have private. So if you do private, this shared preference name, which is mypref, can be used only in this app. But if you say world as readable or world as writable, which means in your phone, if you install this app, anyone can use if they know shared preference name, right? So let's create private, which is more more secure, because I don't want to give my shared preference criteria and username passwords to any other app, right? So that's why we'll be creating mode of private. You can actually give mode private, or you can directly give the value called 0. Both are same. Now this is the first step, which will create a separate internal storage file, right, in Android named my_pref, right? So once it is done, now what we have to do, we have to add things to this. So initially, forget about whether to check this memory or not. We'll see the actual functionality later. First, let us see only one step, which is how to store username and get back to shared preference and show the name using shared preferences. Simple, right? Now, once you're done with this, Now what we have to do is we have to add or edit data in our shared preferences here. Now how to do that is you can't do it directly. So for that you have a separate class object under shared preference called shared preferences dot, you have something called editor. Editor is a internal class of shared preference where you can actually get an instance of editable instance of shared preference. Just say edit is equal to, I'm going to take a shared preference object dot, you have something called editor, edit, right? So this will actually give you the instance of editor as such, right? There you can see that, right? You can see edit method is giving a editor option, which is an internal abstract class of your shared preferences. Fine. So once you are done with this, which means now this file or this shared preference, you should not call it as file, you should call it as a shared preference. This shared preference is now, we can edit this shared preference using this object. Now how to do that is, let's say, so as of now what I want to do is I want to feed some data to this shared preference. In order to feed again, so this is same as our bundle which you have seen, we have to use something called put string, or you have multi things like put float or put boolean and all, right? So let's say we are interested on put string. Now here you have to give the key. Let's say I'm giving the key as user, right, and the value. Now this value is nothing but whatever text you are giving in your username, right, you have to feed it here. So let me get those texts, use here. Let's take edit text as lobj txt user is equal to find view by id. You have r dot id dot edit text username, and in the same way you have edit text password is equal to find view by id r dot id dot edit text password. Okay. Now let me give this username, typecast it and typecast it. Right. Now once we are done with that, what we'll do, we'll just say text user here dot get text. So get text will actually get the text and it will save here. Now this get text anyways, it is giving as a editable text, right? Just say dot toString, and this will save. So now you can see that this is something which is like a key and value, right? In this shared preference, it is like a INI file where you are actually saving key and the corresponding value, key and the corresponding value, right? This is how you save. And once you are done with editing, just say lobj edit dot commit. So this is where you are actually committing your changes, whatever you are actually doing to your shared preference. So once you commit, which means this data, which is your username, will be saved with a key called user in this file called my preferences, right? Now once you are done with this, so let's move on to the next intent, which is activity shared, right? Now here what we'll do, once we are done with commit, let me create an intent so that we can move to the next preference, which is our profile page. So let me create an intent here, which is lobj intent is equal to new intent of, so you have something called login activity dot this, and you have your something called, you have to go to shared pref one activity dot class. So just say start activity of your intent. This will actually take you to the next class, which is a shared preference one. Now here whenever we load this, just say, so in this class what we have to do is we have to read the shared preferences and show the data on this activity, right? Now how can we read that? Here is the next step. Now again, for reading we have to create a shared preference object here, shared preferences, let me call it as LOBJ shared pref is equal to null. So on load or on create of activity, let's say we have to get the shared preference. Just say again this dot, we have something called get shared preferences again, right? Now if you just say this right again, so this will do two things. If this preferences file is not there, which is my underscore pref, in our first activity when we are checking out, right, it was not there, let's say. If it is not there, it will create. If it is there, it will load the same my pref shared preference object to this. So that is what it happens, fine. Now here, when it comes to the second activity, which means now we are actually loading my pref file into the object of this interface. Now just say node underscore file, right? So this is how we actually get into this. Now once this is done, now you are now actually in a reading mode, right? Now let's say I want to read the username, which is lstr user is equal to, we have shared preference dot, we have a direct thing called get key, right? Now you can see get key. So in this get string, right, you have two things. First thing is key and a default value. Now why do we need to give the default values? Let's say in this shared preference, if this key is not there, then it will return this value. That is why we have to give the key. I'll show you when we actually get this part. When we actually start actually doing the login part, right, then we understand why we have to give the default value. So let's say this key is nothing but the same key which we used in here, which is our user. Go back and just say search here. We are retrieving, and let's say if the key is not there, just say no user data. Simple. Now with this, you will get your user. So once you are done with getting user, just say let's assign the same thing to our text view, which is lobj txt view is equal to, now first let's create an ID for this text, which is @ id. Let me call it as txt view user 1, as it is shared preference 1, right? So let's go back to this and let me get that here. R dot, you have id dot txt user 1, right? And let me typecast it. So this is something which I am doing as a separate section. Once you got your text view, just say dot set text of here, let's say welcome, comma, your lstr user. So this is how we actually read the data from shared preferences, and this is how we actually feed the data into my preferences. Okay, let's run this. So it is starting actually, it will start actually fine. So initially, yes, so now you can see this is a simple login page. Let us say I'm just giving a some user, right, and click on login. So it will go to the next. Now you can see I retrieve the same data whatever I have given this, which is, now this is the functionality where we have seen something called when we actually run some data, right? So how to get feed data, and when it moves to the next activity, how to get the same. Fine. Now you can actually process the same data even to the next. If you remember, you can't do this with your bundle, right? So whenever you are creating an intent, right, you can actually move data from one activity to other activity only, right? Because bundle will work from this activity, you are bundling something, the next activity you are releasing the bundle, that's it. but you can't persist the same data across all activity. No, it is not possible. But it is possible with our shared preferences. Let me create one more layout here. Let me call it as okay.
So the mypref is the file.
Sorry, yes, mypref is a shared preference name, which is like a file name. Yeah.
Where it will be located?
No, it will be saved in a device storage.
Okay.
So every
We cannot see that one.
we can't see that. Yeah, we can't see that part. It will be shared as a application cache separately, right? So that will be permanently stored with the application cache itself directly into the app, right? Let's say it's share pref2. So let's create this, and in this share pref2, let's say, let me do it as this is second.
And you are creating now this shared pref2 file, right? So in this file you can directly call the mypref file using the object.
Yes, you can directly call. Yeah, that is what actually I am going to show it here.
Sure.
Okay. So here, let's say here this is a second activity, and let us show it here. Let me call it as text view user2, right? Now let's go to the class my share pref2. Now here, let's say I'm going to create a share preference again. Share preferences LOBJ SP is equal to null. So here, just say share preference is equal to this dot get share preferences of name is my underscore pref. More, you can just keep 0 because 0 is nothing but a private, right? And once it is done, just say string lstr user is equal to share preference dot get string of key. Key is user, and this is nothing but your no user data. Fine. Now once this is done, then what we have to take up string text view lobj txt use txt is equal to find view by id. So here let's give text view user 2, right? Now here let it get as r dot id dot text view user 2 and typecast it. So once you are done, just say text view dot set text of lstr. Just give lstr user. And in share pref 1 we are giving the same thing, and in share pref 2 we are doing this. So in share preference 1, so what we'll do, let's create a button to go to the second activity, right? So let me create a button and let me call it as btn go to 2. Just say go to 2, right? So let's go to the share preference here. So once you are done with this, let's say I'm gonna handle that button click, which is button normally what we can do is for button, right? So if you don't want to create a separate instance of button, you can directly go in this way. If you actually are comfortable with creating all, right, you can directly do this. id dot, you can just say btn go to 2, close your braces and just say dot set on click listener and new on click listener, right? You can directly do this, right? If you don't want to actually create a separate instance, which is same, right? I'm taking find ID, converting it to button and directly adding your set on click listener, right? This will actually make your coding fast. And just say on this button click, you just want to go from current activity to the share pref2 activity. So let's create an intent lobj int is equal to intent of we have something called shared ref1.activity.this comma shared ref2activity.class, and just say start activity of your intent. Right. Now let's run this. Now you can see here in our second activity, right? In our second activity, shared preference activity, we are using the same just file name, or rather file name we should mention it as we are using the same shared preference name to get the data, right? We are not even connecting anything, or we are not even sending any data from the first activity to the second activity, right? Now let's run this. Okay, so let me give some username here, click on login. So it will go to first activity, right, which is 3. Click on go to 2. It will go to the second activity, and you can see this second activity, and right. Now here using this we are not sending anything here, right, but our shared preference will work as it is. Even if you can see here, let me close everything, right? Let me close all the data whatever I have, right? Let me go to menu here, right? And then let me select the app which is storage. Click on that. It will open up this, right? So let's say I'm giving something again. So here let's say I'm giving some other. Click on login, right? So you can see it will be edited again with the latest one. Fine. So this is how you can actually save some data, pass on some data, and you can actually do things like this. Right? Now let's get into actually creating this login now. Right? Now initially what we'll do here is, so when we give username and password, right, what we want to do here is we want to click on this menu and login, and when I click on this menu, only at that time we want to save the data, otherwise we don't want. Fine. Let's go ahead and see that how we can actually do. Now here small changes what we'll be doing is, so this is my login activity, right? Now login activity, share preference 1 and share preference 2, perfect. Now in our login activity what we'll be doing is, whenever we click on this, right, so what we want to show here is, let's say first thing what we have to take is, anyways, yes, we have to take edit text, that is for sure, and then we have to take a checkbox. Hello chk, remember rem is equal to find view by id, r dot id dot, you have something called chk or checkbox, remember me, right? Add the cost. Now thing is, so let's say if this is checked, then only we have to save the data, otherwise don't save it. Simple as that, right? So what we'll do here, we'll just check if lobj checkbox dot is checked. If it is checked, then yes, we want to do this saving, otherwise don't do that. Now you can see when I say otherwise don't do that, right, what do you have to do? You have to remove this data, am I right? Maybe you will be running this activity 2 times, then what happens? It will be saving 2 different times, right? Then if you don't want to remember, then how to remove the same data from share preferences? Again, you have to create in a edit mode again, because we are going to delete the data, right? Just say this dot get share preferences, right? Or if you want to mention this as a separate here, you can mention, there is no issue on that, right? Which is, this will be common for is checked or not checked. If it is checked, we will be placing the data. If it is not checked, we will be deleting the data. So how to delete is dot, you have something called delete or dot remove, and you have to give the key. Key is nothing but a user. Right? In the same way, you have something called, what we'll be doing is we'll create one more put string for our password too. Let's say put string of, let me call it as pwd, and value is nothing but lobj. You have text password dot get text dot toast. So this is the password field we are actually setting to this. Right? Now if it is checked, we are placing, and if it is not checked, we want to remove. Edit dot remove of pwd. Simple. So once you are done with editing, what you have to do, you have to commit it out. Dot commit. This is very important. If you don't commit, it won't affect in this share preference. So this is the first step which we have seen. Let us first run this part, till this part, and we'll see how it works. Now here you can see, if I don't check the remember me, right, what we are doing, we are not setting any of the data of user and password. Now which means if it goes to share preference 1, what it will display, it will try to get the user, right, but it won't be there. That's why it says no user data. In the same way, let's say string lsci password is equal to the share preference dot get string of pwd. Default value is no password data. Simple. Fine. So this is how it works. And for password, what we'll do, welcome is user, just give some space, let's display password. Right? So this is how we are going to display username and password. And when it goes to share preference 2, again let's take up the same thing, which is string, you have lstr password is equal to share pref that got pwd, and default value is your no password data, right? And what we are going to do here is set username plus some space colon some space, just say lstr password. Right? We're just going to show that how it is going to work. Now let us run this first. Okay, so here so here you have username, so let's say something like Sri, and let's say password will be just 1234, right? Let's click on remember me and log in. Right, now you can see welcome Sri and password. Go to 2 and you have Sri and password, right? Okay, this is fine. Now let's go back again. So let me just quickly run this again. So okay, now let me skip this remove me, just see what happens. So let's say I'm giving some ABCD as password, click on login. Now you can see when I click on login, you can see no user data, no password data. Okay? So this is what I was talking about. When there is no key found, it won't give you a null or something. You just say default, it will just give you a default value. Now even if you go to the next, go to 2, right, it will give you the same no user data, no password data. Okay? So this is how you can actually set the default value for your shared preferences. So this was the next step we had. Now let's move ahead with one more step, which is, now whenever I say remember me, right, when I log in, now what we have to do is, next time if I run this again, it should directly go to my this page. So this page is nothing but my, let's say, profile page, right? Let's see how to do that. So let's go to share preference 1. So let us take one text view here. So let us say that this is something which is profile page, right? Profile page, something I'm just showing it as a profile page. Now which is like when you run this, okay, so here you just give something here, click on remove me and login. Now which means now we already have a login ID and password being provided, right? Now this is a login ID and password directly, and this is a profile page. When I click on this, now let us say we are going to the child pages, right? Now what we have to do is, let us say, so once I log in, right, unless I log out, I don't want user to see that, yeah, your logout should happen, right? So let us see how to do that now, which means whenever I open up this login activity, first thing, anyways, even if user can't see this login activity, right, you have to handle this login activity on create. You have to do something that, okay, this user ID is already there, so you don't have to provide this login screen. Now for that, let us see how to do that. So first step is that you have to go for your share preference again, is equal to this dot get share preference of my underscore pref and mode is 0. Let's say if there is share preference, it will give, otherwise it will create here itself. And then we are going to check something called share preference. If share preference dot, we have a method called contains. Let's say if it contains user, right? If it contains some user, and let us say LOBJ share preference dot contains of your password, right? Then what we have to do, we have to move directly to the next page, right? So the next page is nothing but our next intent as such, right? So here we have already written to move to the next page itself. So let me create a separate method for that, which is public void. So let me call it as go to second, right? And let me copy this here, and let me call the second here. So the same method, what I'm going to do here is the same method, I'll call it here, which is if there is a username and password, I don't have to show this login screen, rather I will directly go to the profile page. So let me run this and see what happens. Now this time whenever I run this, right, what happens is I already have a shared preference being stored for this application in my Android, right? Which means whenever now, even if I'm installing a new instance, right, but that shared preference which is for my app will always be there, right? Now, which means whenever it opens a screen, let's see what happens. Can you see here? So this time what happened? This time it directly went to profile page. It is not asking for any login. Why? Because in login activity itself, the first step what we are doing is we are checking whether the username and password are already there. Now here I am just checking contains. You can also check whether the username and password are correct or not. You can also check that, right? You can actually improve the logic here if you want. Now you can go to profile page, and when I click on go to again, now you can see you have the same username and password. This is how you can actually create your login. Now let's say you want to create a logout functionality, right? Let's say this is your share preference 2 and you want to create a logout functionality over here. Now let me go to share preference 2 layout, and let me take out a button here. So let me call it as logout here. BTN logout. Sorry. Right? You can create it anywhere you want, right? You can create in the menu, right? Wherever you want you can create, right? But I'm just showing you how you can actually move ahead with the logout. Now in this text view, let's say I want to use button click, right, which is my button, find view by ID, r dot id dot btn logout dot set on click listener of new on click listener. Let's see what we can do on click, right? Now in this on click, so we have to do few things which are very important. Now first thing is, whenever a user says logout, right, which means you have to remove current shared preference for username and password. That is the first thing ever you have to do. And then we have to move to the login activity. So these are the two tasks which we'll be doing now here. So I'll be taking shared preference here, which is LOBJ shared preference is equal to this dot get. Okay, we have already created a shared LOBJSP, right, which is this. Now let me use this and just say, so I have to create a shared preference dot editor, because I have to remove few things, right? Let me call it as edit is equal to LOBJ shared preference dot edit. And now what we have to do, we have to create edit dot remove of user. You can directly give key, and LOBJ edit dot remove of password. So these two things will be removed, and then just say LOBJ edit dot commit. So this will actually remove the user and password keys from shared preferences whose name is my underscore preference. Now once this is done, now we have to go to the login activity. So just create an intent. Intent is equal to new intent of, so this is shared pref2 activity dot this command. So I want to go to login activity dot class. So I use your intent, which is you have to start your activity. Intent. Okay. So this will actually take you to the login. Now once we're done, let's say create a toast. Just say toast dot make text of application context. Just say user logged out. Toast dot long dot show. Right? Now these all will be showing, and in our login what we'll do, so once we are going to go to second, right, just say that we'll create a toast, user logged in successfully. Dot show. Right. Now let's go ahead and create. Let's see how it works. Now even now what happens is, even now if I run this now, right, my shape preference is again there, right, which means again it will directly go to the profile page again. Let's see what happens here. You can see user login successfully directly. Click on go to again, right? So your thing is opening now again, Sri and ABD. Click on logout. Now you can see logout and it will come to your screen. Fine. This time give something else, Sri, and just give some password. Right? Click on the memory and login. Now you can see user login successfully and your profile page. Now let's run it again. Now this time the username and password are different, right? Now let's run this again. Now you can see directly logged in, and you can see the latest username and password. Go to 2 and let's say he is logged out. And I click on login, user logged out, and it will directly take you to login activity, right? Now let me run it again and we'll see what happens now. This time in my shape preferences of this app, which is storage app, right? So there are no username and password, because when we logged out we actually removed the complete shape preference keys. The file will be there, doesn't matter, but the main thing, which is like the keys of user and password, are not there, right? Now let us see which window will it open. Now you can see it went to login again, right? So this is how you can actually create your things. Just give some ABC, click on remember, login. Now this app will always stay logged in, right? Let us say you are switching off your phone. Now switching off is nothing but here you have your emulator, right? So there is a symbol, a power symbol. Click on that. This is switched off. Click on that again, right? Your phone will switch on again. Now you can see this is a fresh switch on, which means it will clear everything. Unlock this, right? Go back again if you want. Go back, just go back to everything, which means everything is clear. Now if you click on home, if you want to clear even the memories, now just see these are few things which are open, right? I don't know whether you can see that or not. Let's say I want to delete this storage, right? Okay, so you can see storage is not there already, right? So let's go to storage here, click on that. So let us say this is like Gmail app I'm opening. Click on the storage. You can see it will directly go to the profile page, right? So this is how you can actually create your functional login and logout using your shape preferences, and shape preferences are secure. It won't be this simple actually, like your keys will not be like this simple. It will be like encrypted keys again, which you cannot understand, like user and few things like this, and this will be saved as an encrypted form in some file, right, where user can't understand these things, where even your shared preference name will be encrypted again, right? So that is how you can actually create security, more security as such. But when you are creating your preference as a private, right, again Android in turn will give you a double level security again here, right? Where you are actually mentioning it private, which means no other app will be able to access your shared preference from their app. That's the first level security. You are actually using your Android security steps. And then obviously you just try to mention your preferences, names, keys and everything as complex as you can, right? If you are actually using some few things which need to be secure. Actually, yeah. You have a question? Yeah.
No, I cannot hear you, that's why.
Okay, you can't hear me, guys? The complex names for your shared preference file names and the keys, right? If you're actually developing for any, but basically if it is simple that your data is not so sensitive, right, then you can actually go for this. Right?
You said some encrypted keys and encrypted information.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? Like from the database or being hard coded?
No, actually, again, no. I mean, I'm not talking about a database. It will be in the same Android app itself, hard coded somewhere, right? Or you can actually create a separate globals class, separate class, and you can actually give all these keys as a final token keys.
Values. Okay.
Yeah, fine. So that is the best way. You never ever hard code anything in each and every class. This is a very bad way of coding. So as you'll be confused, right? I've just created this. Normally, how you should do is, now when you have a source, you should always create a common. Let me show you something. So first create a package which is com dot something like company name sr dot. Let us say common, which is common for the complete Android app. And let me create a new class. Let me call it as CLS Globals. So in this, what I'm going to do here is, let's define in this way, which is more good way to practice. Just say these are declarations, right? And you can have something called constants, right? Always try to code in a meaningful way. Just say it is public static final. You have something called string constant underscore my shared preference name, right, is equal to, just say my underscore pref. So this is where, so my share pref underscore name, let's say, right? So this is a preference name, right? So here, wherever you're using your preference here, my pref, don't hard code, just say CLS globals dot, you can just say this, right? Again, go to this, again, don't use this one, CLS globals dot my pref, sorry, constant my pref. Again, go to which is your login activity. Again, so wherever you have CLS globals dot your constant pref. So wherever you are actually using these things, you can change everything. Now you can see that everything is centric now, right? So if you want to change file name, you can change at one place, right? Where you are actually mentioning your constant data, and wherever you have share preference, yes, we have cleared. Share preference, we have cleared, right? Now you can see if you want to change the name, you can directly change it from here. That's it. It will work across. So let's first run with this mypref, clean, okay, and then go back to this, run this. Now you can do the same constant declaration for even your username and password. Right? Now these are something which are good coding practices actually. So I think it will directly log in. Yeah, perfect. Now you can see, which means it is already using the same file name, right? We have actually done a global constant, but even now you can see it is a directory. Right now, if I change the name, let's say I'm just giving something else. Right now, let me run this again. Right, this time what happens is, so whenever we actually install this APK, right, so it will try to go and access the preference name which we gave, right? Now you can see it went to the login, right? Because this time the name of reference file is different, right? Which means this is not there, which means there won't be any username and password. Now let's give some username and password, something. Click on remember and login, right? Now you can see user login. Now let's run it again. Now this time, yes, because your shared preference name which you gave, right, it was already there. So now when it tries to log in, open this app again, the first activity you are opening is your login activity, right? And it will directly take you to the shared preference which you are actually referring to. And this shared preference is already been created. So that's why it will directly take you to the profile page. Right. So this is how you can actually work with your shared preferences across your different activities and things. So unless you remove, right, it won't be removed. There is no expiry for these shared preferences. No expiry. If you are clearing your cache of this app, then all your preferences will go. And normally where you will see these preferences is sometimes if you take an example of gaming, right? Now the last instance of game will be saved, right? What I mean is last instance of game in sense, so wherever you're playing, each and every level will be saved. Where it will be saved? They will be saving in some as a key and value of something in a shared preference, or maybe they are using a local database, SQLite database too. But if you're taking a shared preference, they'll be saving some session state as a direct data into shared preference. Okay? And one very important thing is that you should not use the shared preference for huge data. Right? Huge data part, don't do that because it will actually take up a heavy RAM. Right? It may stuck or it may consume more processing time. In turn, if you're actually creating any app which takes more processing time or which takes more RAM memory to store data, which means it will consume more power. So if any app is consuming more power, that app is not an optimized app, right? So that is what is all about the shared preferences which we have. Fine. So I hope this was good. Now you understood what exactly we have to do. Now you can actually judge which one to use, either to use a common release to save the data or shared preference. Yeah, Nabila, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. You said for the larger part of the data, we should not use the shared preference. Then what we supposed to use? Like if we need to pass the data across the activities like we did with the shared preference?
Yeah, you have other things, right? You have other storage parts, right? Maybe you can go ahead with that.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
Fine. So huge data in the sense maybe it's like not at least for maybe 10 or 20 KBs and all, but if it is huge data where you want to save bulk data, then don't go for shared preference. You can directly go for SQLite or some storage part, right? Okay then.
Between these two activities, we cannot have the data like across the activities.
Sorry, Nabila, what was that?
The concept of bundle, right?
Yeah.
We want to pass the data across the multiple activities. We cannot use bundle. We just can use bundle only to pass the data between two activities.
No. It is like see, in between one activity and other activity, right? You have to bind the data in one activity, send the data to the second activity. If you want to send the same data again to third, again you have to bundle and send, right?
Okay.
Okay, one instance of bundling can be done only between two activities, right? Two immediate activities as such. Now,
Okay.
but if share preferences across the complete app, even after you restart your phone, right, it will stay as it is.
Okay.
Until unless you clear cache or remove the keys, your share preference will stay forever. There is no expiry for your share preferences.
Okay.
Fine?
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, then that Java, we have something called result sets, or in JDBC, I mean, right? What is the same here? How we can actually map the same thing here? What exactly is different here, right? We'll see how we can actually do those things and all, right? How to write a query, very important thing. How can we write a query here which can actually map directly to the SQLite DBs, content values. We call them as SQLite content values, where you can actually place the different parameters and you can actually run them. Right here, it's a different way how you can actually create a query. And we'll see how we can actually do it. Fine. So that will be all for today, guys. So let's meet up tomorrow in next class, and we'll see.